All righty, well, welcome to Deep Stretch. This is going to be a full body situation type of class today. Roll out your mat. I'm going to include a playlist link here in our chat. So if you're watching the recording, we will do our best to get that playlist link included in the description down below. But if you don't need, you don't need this specific playlist, you can listen to anything super chill. So once your mat or your blanket or your floor space is ready to go, I'm going to meet you there in a comfortable seat. Wonderful. So once you find that comfortable seat, just kind of give yourself a minute or two to really shift, shimmy, readjust. You know, a comfortable seat might not always look the same. So this Sukhasana seat might be comfortable today, but it might have felt like trash last time you tried it. So just know that your legs can go any which way as long as you are able to close your eyes and find some relative peace without moving around too much. So we're going to use this shape to transition out of our day into our practice and get started. So whenever you're ready, take a nice big breath in, open your mouth, sigh it out, let your eyes close. And then keeping your eyelids closed, let's do that big breath again. Deep breath in, sigh it out. Let's go one more time. Big breath in, full breath out. Now sealing the lips, just breathing in and out through your nostrils, starting to find a nice even pattern. Doing a quick full body scan, maybe making sure that you can feel your shoulders on top of your hips, your head just above your shoulders. It might feel for a moment or two as though you have to lean back more than you normally would, but just get to know what a truly upright spine feels like. And take a quick inventory of what parts of you feel at ease, what parts of you feel ready for some stretching attention. Essentially, just piece by piece, bringing your awareness into your body, into your mind, onto your little yoga mat island. If you're not on a yoga mat, just imagine a very lovely 2-foot by 6-foot floating patch of paradise, away from all the distractions, away from whatever temperature it is outside. And as you become a bit more aware of what's going on in your physical body, just a gentle reminder that this style of yoga, this yin practice that we're embarking upon, we hold postures for quite some time. That way we move with intentionality and we give our tissues time to accept change. So taking that divine pause, taking that time to really rest while inviting those subtle, deep changes to take shape. In just a moment, we'll start transitioning into our first posture together. So what I invite you to do is only open your eyes enough to see what you need to see. So if you can kind of keep that sleepy quality about your awareness, I encourage that. If you're very wired from a full pot of coffee just an hour ago, you do you, honey boo boo. But essentially what we're gonna do is either rotate ourselves so that we're facing the short end of our mat if you're not already, or just ignore everything about what direction you're facing and recline onto your back. Once your back finds the floor, let your head and shoulders stay nice and heavy. You're gonna bend your knees, connect the soles of the feet to the floor, and then just very, very gently take a big breath in. And as you exhale, start to hug your right knee in towards your chest. Feel free to go a little bit wide here if you're pregnant or if you've got any tension in your low back. But taking this into a really juicy hip stretch, you're gonna cross your right ankle over your left knee for a figure 4 stretch. We also call this a supine pigeon. So if you bring your chin to your chest, you should see this figure 4 shape of your right ankle crossing over your left knee. And you can begin just by using your right fingertips to press that right knee away from you. Now, even if you are quite bendy flexy and you take a different variation of this pose quite often, stay here for a little longer than you normally would. Give yourself time to transition. Releasing any tension in your right glute, in your left toes, in your jaw. And then sometime in the next handful of breaths, only if you need to intensify the sensation that you'll be holding for a few minutes, maybe, just maybe, you interlace your fingers behind your left hamstrings and start to hug that entire figure 4 shape in towards your chest. Now, remember, we're holding these poses for a little while, so there's no need to rush. It is not a reflection on how good a person you are if you keep that left foot connected to the floor. Very good. So a moment ago, I mentioned that divine pause, the ability to take a little break, take a rest. That's the philosophical conversation that we've been having at the studio this week. Sanskrit word virama means divine pause. Now, the society that we live in is not one that often celebrates taking a break. Quite often we are criticized or judged for needing to sit down, to take a nap, to take a rest, to take some time off. And although efficiency is an important quality of productivity, it's not everything. So the simple fact that you are doing this practice means that you're getting your priorities straight. It's not just nice to take a break, but it's essential. Many languages, including the language of music, has multiple words to describe and delineate pausing, resting, the essential nature of stopping. So even in those moments of awkwardness where you're not quite sure, am I supposed to be this quiet? Am I supposed to not be doing much? The answer is yes. You're doing it perfectly. Deep breath in. Full breath out. Deep breath in. Full breath out. One more time. Deep breath in. Full breath out. Now, listening to my words rather than relying just on what you see on your screen, we're going to take this figure four stretch into a twist. So if you're hugging your left thigh in towards your chest, lower that left foot back down. And then rather than keeping that figure four shape, you're going to slide your entire right thigh on top of your left thigh. So kind of like that fancy thing that you do when you're at dinner, you know, crossing your leg over your other leg. We've got right leg on top of left leg. Bring your arms out to a T. And then slowly but surely drop the cross of your legs over to the left. Now, notice immediately if this feels terrible. If so, unravel the legs, just stack inner thigh on top of inner thigh, coming to a less complicated twist. If this feels pretty okay, but maybe a little bit intense, feel free to press into your right foot to bring your knees up a little higher until your spine is ready to accommodate. And if this feels just like the best thing in the entire world, continue to just let your knees drop to the left. Don't feel that you have to keep that cross. The point here is to let yourself take a relatively comfortable pause. So if at any point you need to unravel, feel free to do so. The arms might change position here. If you keep your arms at a T, you might crawl your fingertips a little farther away from each other. You can point your chin up towards the ceiling, or you can drop your chin over towards your right shoulder for the deepest possible twist. And just continue to breathe. Maybe noticing as you find that little moment of stillness, what around you is also still. Likewise, what around you is continuing to move. Last few moments. If they're not already there, bringing your arms out to a T and flipping your palms up towards the ceiling. So the backs of your wrists are resting on the floor. Good. Spread your palms as wide as you can. And think about reaching your left hand away from your right hand away from your left hand. Maybe even squeezing into your biceps, squeezing into your shoulder blades. Feel that heat, that action, maybe even a little bit of that tingling through your shoulders, through your arms, through your palms. And then on your next exhale, release everything through the arms. Good. On your next inhale, start to unravel, bring yourself back through center. First, one of my favorite parts about yin yoga is this intuitive time between postures. So remain on your back, but give yourself a solid 30 seconds to let that figure four stretch and that twist really settle in. So any little movements that you need, some windshield wipering of the knees, maybe a full body stretch. You know, body awareness isn't something that just happens overnight. It's these little moments of noticing where you feel crooked, where you feel uneven, that really contributes to that language. So make some mental notes. And then rebend your knees, bring the soles of your feet to the floor once again. Start to hug your left knee in towards your chest, knowing again that you can always go wide. Good. Take a big breath in and a full breath out. And then start to find figure four on the second side. So crossing your left ankle over your right knee, finding that figure four shape, and then give yourself lots of time here to just start by maybe giving a gentle press with your left hand into your left thigh. Relaxing the ankles, relaxing the glutes. Maybe noticing if that right hip pops up off the floor just a little bit, knowing that's not right or wrong, it simply is. Feel free to massage your low back a little bit here. And then now that we've given ourselves about 40 seconds to transition, if you'd like to dial up the intensity, maybe you interlace your fingers behind the right hamstrings and hug both legs in that figure four shape in towards your chest. So there could be a whole variety of sensations that you feel here. The outer left hip, maybe the left glute, maybe even the right hamstrings, depending on what's been going on with you this week. But ideally, we're not feeling this in the neck and the shoulders. So if you feel like you're straining to get that interlace of the fingers behind your thigh, maybe hang on for another breath or two. And if you can't soften through the neck and shoulders, allow that right foot to come back down to the floor. Just continuing to breathe. Truly, your only job for the next several long moments is to breathe and take up space. Essentially, you are a newborn baby. Breathe, take up space, A+. You're doing it exactly right. Maybe notice if your thoughts are wandering There's nothing wrong with that. It's a very, very human thing to do, to think. Is there a theme to your thoughts? Can you guide them back? Preparing to transition here. If that right foot is still lifted into the air, go ahead and gently bring it back down to connect to the floor. As you're ready, your left thigh will slide all the way on top of your right thigh. Very good, arms out to a T. Keep it very simple to start. Drop both knees over to the right. And again, just like we did on that first side, immediately recognize if this is gonna work for you. If the answer is no, unravel. If the answer is maybe shift some things a little bit here. Press into your feet so you're not twisting as deeply. And if the answer is, yeah, I'm kind of loving this, just let it continue. The cross of your legs and the way that the interlace of your leg bones is working with gravity here, over time, your knees are going to get pulled closer and closer to the floor. In other words, over time, this twist will deepen itself. So continue to breathe, continue to turn off muscles where you can. Glutes, hips, low back, hamstrings, quadriceps, toes. Take a big breath in, make sure that you're not clenching your teeth or sealing your tongue to the roof of your mouth. And then exhale everything back out. As ever, continue to breathe. Continue to notice. In this short span of time, what change has already occurred? Can you feel anything in your low back, your sacrum? You notice your knees closer to the floor. Perhaps it's more of a mental change. If they're not already outstretched, bring your arms to a T. Flipping your palms open towards the ceiling, backs of the wrists rest on the floor. Good, spread your fingers as wide apart as you can. Reach hand away from hand. Think about maybe even pinching your shoulder blades together or down into the surface of your floor. Engage through the biceps, the triceps. Think about turning everything on. Notice, do you feel it in your neck, your shoulders, the fronts or backs of your arms, the hands perhaps? And then just when that fatigue starts to set in, exhale, release. Inhale starts to bring you right back through center. Plenty of time here. Intuitively unravel, unwind. Any little adjustments that you need here, let yourself shift from side to side. Ideally, any of that unevenness we might have felt earlier has balanced itself out now. If you're still feeling a little wonky from side to side, that's perfectly normal as well. Now, I did get a bit of a request to put a slight emphasis on low back and sacrum this evening. So although props are not necessary for any part of this practice, if you happen to have a block somewhere nearby and you'd like to use that block to make this next posture a little bit more low back focused, go ahead and grab that. Wonderful. Now, maintaining that posture on your back, knees are going to stay bent. We're headed into either 3 rounds of bridge if you are not using the block, or 1 round of supported bridge if you are using the block. So I'm going to give the modified version first. For those of you using the block, focusing on the sacrum and low back area, go ahead and press into your feet, bridge your hips into the air, slide that block on its lowest setting underneath your sacrum. So it should be quite low. It's not going to be resting in the curve of your low back. Wonderful. And then slowly but surely release all the weight of your hips onto that block. And just stay here. Now for my pals not using blocks this evening, you and I together are going to take 3 very slow rounds of bridge pose together. So as you're ready, chin is going to point straight up towards the ceiling, arms are down by your sides, palms connecting to the floor. Take a big breath in, start to bridge your hips up towards the ceiling. Think about shooting your tailbone between your ankle bones. So you should feel a little bit of a stretch on the tops of your thighs. Good, keep your heels connected to the floor. Make sure you're not looking around from side to side. And then exhale, gently release your hips all the way back down to the mat. Resist the urge to shift from side to side just this time. Inhale, lift your hips up. Tuck your tailbone between your ankle bones, if that makes sense. And then maybe this time, think about shimmying your shoulders away from your ears. Good, give yourself a little bit of traction here on the back of your low mat. Keep pressing into the entire surface of both feet. And then exhale, lower all the way down. Good, my friends on blocks, stay as you are exactly. Friends not on blocks, last time, inhale, lift your hips. Squeeze through your glutes to help tuck your tailbone down. Roll your shoulders away from your ears. Good, and then this time, as we come down, you're going to reach your arms all the way up overhead. Backs of your wrists come to the floor behind you. Good, rise up to your fingertips, and then just like a slinky, 1 vertebra at a time, lowering down from shoulders to hips. Beautiful. Now, my friends on blocks, press into your feet, float your hips into the air, slide that block out of the way, and you're going to dismount exactly the same. Reach your arms all the way up overhead, rise up to your tippy toes, beginning with your upper back. Slowly start to release all the way down. Feel how much more space you've created in your low back, in your sacrum. And then once we've all returned our hips down to the floor, take a moment here, let everything go, maybe a little windshield wiper, a little side to side. Beautiful, and then however you choose to come back upright is just fine. You might roll to one side, you might rock yourself up through center with momentum. Lovely. And then starting to take this stretch into the backs of our legs. So we're coming into a Janu Shirshasana variation. Very often, Janu Shirshasana is quite wide, but today we're going to focus on sending the right leg directly out in front. So creating this little tree pose shape. Your right leg is coming directly forward. Your left knee is bending out to the left side. Left foot is going to come to or towards your right inner thigh. Good. Now inhale, reach up nice and tall. Turn off any expectation you have on how bendy you have to be. And then as you exhale, turn off all your spinal muscles and just round over your left leg, or I'm sorry, your right leg. Now in these first few moments, you're gonna feel kind of a zing of awareness. Zing is the technical term, just in case you didn't know. So just notice if you point your right toes versus if you flex your right ankle, how does that change that zinginess? And if you tuck your chin more into your chest versus looking more forward, how does that change the stretch in the back of your right hamstrings? We're here for a little while. So be very kind to yourself. No judgment on how far you fold or don't fold. Maintaining the steadiness of your breath. Perhaps noticing right about now, has the edge of intensity lessened? Are you still feeling that urge to run away from this fold? Or could you maybe sort of possibly entertain the idea of walking your fingers half an inch farther forward? Notice how that shifts things. And then just come back to your breath. Rather than letting this fold go entirely, we're going to start to translate it slightly more into a side bend here. So as of right now, you are folded over your right leg. So in just a moment, or as you're ready, you're going to start to bring your left fingers outside of your right leg, and then continue to crawl your fingers over to the right. Good. Now, depending on how bendy, stretchy you are, especially in your low back, you might feel a lot, you might not feel anything. Your intensity dial is actually going to be your chin. So if you'd like to dial this up a little bit, think about tucking your chin into your right armpit. So you're not simply looking right, you're looking down and right. Now, ideally, you're feeling this pretty acutely in your left low back. If you need some fine-tuning pointers, maybe walk your fingers farther away from you as you continue to crawl them to the right. As you inhale, start to come back through center, framing that right leg with your fingertips. And then slowly but surely start to bring yourself right back up through center. Notice what you need. Notice where you feel crooked. For me personally, this one always makes me feel like my spine is a little longer on one side than the other. So shake that out. Give yourself a moment here. Come onto your hands and knees just for a moment. Doesn't matter what direction you're facing. Let's give the forearms and the toes a little bit of attention before we switch sides. So from your tabletop, tuck all 10 toes under, and only to the degree of your comfort, start to sit your hips back towards your heels. Now, for 50% of people, this is going to feel like nothing. For the other 50%, this is going to be a next level of torture. So if it's possible for you to stay here, do so. Maybe you can even walk your hands up onto your thighs, intensifying that stretch a little bit. Good. Now, to distract ourselves from what's going on in our arches and our toes, hands are going to come out in front of you, just like tabletop. But now you're going to rotate your fingers down. Bring those fingers to the floor, pick your hips up off your heels, and we're just gonna turn this into a torture device in its own right. Once again, start to sink your hips back towards your heels. So now not only are we stretching the arches and the toes, but we're getting the forearms in on that action as well. Good, some options. You can slide your fingers closer to your knees to make that less terrible. You can slide your wrists farther away from your body to make it more terrible. You can also externally rotate your wrists to any degree you'd like to help target the inner or the outer forearms. So in essence, pick your poison for the next 2 minutes. Always knowing you can take little breaks here. The hips can lift up off the heels. You can untuck your toes. If you've got some pops and cracks in there, do what you need to do. Then take a nice deep breath in, pick your hips up off your heels. Return your hands to that neutral tabletop position. Untuck your toes. Send your hips back down to the ground, and this time extend your left leg out in front of you. Very good. Shaking out the wrists, doing any other little fine-tuning adjustments that you need here for the wrists, for the forearms, for the knuckles. And then now that you have that left leg extended forward, it's that right knee that's dropping out to the right side. Big breath in, look up, reach up. And then exhale, think about turning off your spinal muscles and just drape over that left leg. With these first couple of moments, ask yourself, how does this compare to the first side? Mentally, physically. Are there contributing factors in how you live your day-to-day life that might be making this side tighter or more mobile? Just giving yourself a little bit of permission to sink into those quiet moments. Right about now, notice if anything has changed. Even if it's the most subtle change imaginable. Can you soften your toes, soften your ankle? And maybe just entertain the idea of crawling your fingers half an inch farther forward. We're very close to that moment where this forward fold becomes a side bend. So try and absorb everything that you can about this forward fold. Let your hamstrings really settle, really appreciate the love that you are sending their way. And then as you are folded over your left leg, start to send your right fingers outside of your left calf. Begin to crawl your fingers over to the left. And then fine tuning however you need to, either with fingers farther away or closer in. Your chin is now your intensity dial. Big breath in. Exhale, chin down and to the left. Think about tucking it into your armpit. Keeping your breath slow and steady. Even if every reminder to breathe snaps you back into the reality of what you're doing in this moment, you're still doing it exactly right. We're very close. So let this pose continue to impart its lessons. The effects of change on your skeleton, on your muscles, on that connective tissue between. Take a big breath in. And as you exhale, slowly start to come back through center. Notice already any recoil effects. And then slowly bring yourself back up through center. Any little movements, any motions that you need, take them. Nothing off limits. Really feel what's going on in your spine, and your shoulders, and your neck. Lovely. And then if Sukhasana is an easy seat for you, we're basically there. So come on into that easy seat. Your legs need to shoot out forward or out to the sides, that's just fine too. So we're gonna send our focus into our shoulders, into our neck a little bit here. So in just a moment, I'm gonna instruct that you interlace your fingers behind your back. Now, when I say interlace, what I mean is good old-fashioned hand holding. Now, we're gonna interlace the natural way, and then we're gonna interlace what I call the bad first date way. You're gonna interlace the awkward fingers. You know, there's a comfortable way and an uncomfortable way. Just remember the difference between the two. So when you're ready, bring your hands behind your back, interlace the comfortable way. Nice. Now you're gonna take that interlace and you're gonna slide it all the way over to your right hip. Good. So as of right now, I do believe it's gonna be your, let's see, your left wrist is pressing into your right outer hip. Good. Take a big breath in. And as you exhale, drop your right ear towards your right shoulder. Now, fine-tuning this might mean that your chin points up more towards the ceiling or drops in more towards your chest. But this pose doesn't have to be a perfectly static experience. You can do a little side to side, you can do a little up and down with your head until you really find everything that's going on in the left side of your neck, the front of your left shoulder. And then bringing your head back through center, bringing the fingers back to your low back, maybe shaking out your arms if you need a little moment there. And now when you bring your hands behind your back, once again, interlace the awkward way, the bad first date way. Good, I'm gonna assume everyone is laughing because that's a terrible joke. Now you're gonna send that interlace over to your left hip. So now you got your right outer wrist pressing into your left outer hip. Good, big breath in. Exhale, left ear towards left shoulder. For some people, this one might be like, oof, wow. For others, we might really have to search for it. So give yourself plenty of time. Shake your head yes and no. Really get into what's going on now on the right side of the neck, the front of the right shoulder. Deep breath in. Full breath out. Any last little wiggles that you need here? And then on your next inhale, head comes back through center. Fingers come to your back. Release that interlace, shake it out. Now, any final postures that you need before we head into Shavasana, now is the time to add those in. So eventually you're gonna make your way onto your back, but if you need a little more forearm stretching, if you need something in your fingers, in your neck, if you need more side bends. Essentially, no holds barred, no rules apply, just wiggle and shimmy however your body is asking for it. And in about a minute or so, we'll meet on our backs. And as you make your way onto your back, no rush. If you still need more time upright, by all means, you know the way to your back. But as you approach that position, just know that standard Shavasana has two long legs, heels headed towards opposite corners of the mat, and two long arms. Now, this might not be a one-size-fits-all experience. So if lying flat on your back does not feel good, if you're pregnant, it's not recommended past week 16. If it just feels like absolute garbage on your low back, some options are to bend your knees, step your feet as wide as the edges of your mat, and let your knees drop in together. You can also just let your knees point up towards the ceiling. If there's anything about your neck and shoulders that don't feel great, maybe arms to a T, a goalpost, or all the way up overhead. A completely different option, this is known as Shavasana B. You might roll onto your right or left side, coming into a fetal position, and just resting here for our Shavasana time today. So essentially, just pick and choose, custom fit your Shavasana. Give yourself plenty of time to get comfortable. Know that it's not going to be immediate that you get into that very restorative headspace, just like with everything we've been doing. Give yourself time. Sometimes Shavasana can become the most challenging posture in our yoga toolbox. More challenging than even arm balances or inversions, because this is the space where the mental gymnastics become apparent. There aren't many opportunities or spaces in our day-to-day life that celebrate stillness and silence. In fact, those are the words used to describe the ever elusive self-care. And although self-care can look like many things, the essential nature of giving yourself the opportunity to experience stillness and silence is part of our basic human needs. So let yourself rest. It's just a pause. And if you have the time today to rest a bit longer, it's one of the most beautiful aspects of practicing virtually. Because eventually the call or the video will end, but you can stay exactly as you are. So give yourself permission to keep resting. Depending on what time of day it is where you are, it might even be time to rest for real. But if it's time to come back, take a deep breath in, a full breath out, and maybe start to bring a little bit of life back into your fingers, your toes, your knees, your elbows, your wrists, your ankles. Eventually, maybe rolling to one side, or if rocking right up the middle through center is more comfortable for you, that's a lovely option as well. If you find yourself seated, allow your palms to touch, tips of your thumbs to hover just over the center of your chest in this very outward gesture of gratitude. Thank you for existing. Thank you for practicing. And thank you for pausing today. Namaste.